So today we have a very special episode. Today we are interviewing the lovely B.Jones. So thank you, Beth, for joining us.
Yes, I'm excited to be here.
Tell us about yourself and your styling journey.
Okay, so in terms of my personal style or my career, or kind of maybe a mix of both, or
Maybe a mix of both, yeah. Definitely a mix of both. I feel like they're both very interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in South Carolina back in the 80s. I was born in 1980. So this was pre-internet, honestly, the only thing I had exposure to on this little island that I grew up on was, of course, magazines and then, movies and TV. So I always had a love for fashion, but in a way that was like very kind of basic, no real knowledge of it. Just I knew I loved to play dress up. Actually, my mom used to run this rummage sale, and it was kind of like it was in a high school gym, and like she would just be collecting all these piles the night before and kind of getting everything set up. And she would always say to me, like, go through the piles and see if there's anything that you want. Yeah. And I'll give you like $20 and you can buy it. And so I didn't realize at the time, but that was like birthing a love for digging for treasures. Wow. And I actually am so upset with myself because the stuff I found that was my dress up closet as a little girl was like incredible vintage that I didn't realize was vintage or as special as it was. But I mean, I remember like a tapestry coat, like floor length with big fur trim that was like for sure from like the Woodstock days and, like 1950s prom dresses and all of that. So I started collecting, a dress-up closet as I saw it as a kid, but definitely my love for all of that continued to grow as I got older. And then in terms of, I definitely experimented with my style. This was like the 90s. So, I was the weirdo wearing overalls the first, basketball game, and people were like, what are you wearing? You're not on a farm. And, so I was always like testing things out and playing around. And, but again, like my exposure was just like movies and magazines and stuff like that. So I dreamt of, I remember I loved Meg Ryan's style in the 90s. Yep. And so I would dress like the You've Got Mail style, like opaque tights and little pleated skirts and little cardigans. And I chopped my hair like her. And, so I was always like picking characters, which is kind of still what I do now, and playing around with that. But in terms of it, like really growing into something that blossomed and then turned into career was probably honestly later in college, because again, I was at a time where fashion and the career of fashion was so outside reality where I was, and even the knowledge that you could even, sorry, I'm like my light.
No, you're good.
The fact that you could even like work in that unless your mom was an editor at Vogue or something.
Or you lived in New York. Yeah,
like it just did not seem like a reality. And so I think I was like going into my last year of college and really started to be like, wait, I really love this fashion thing. Like, what can I do with this as a career? And I was living in Alabama at the time, and I did a study abroad in London, and that just like really expanded my, fashion perspective even more. And so actually came back and ended up moving to California and like finishing school out here with the idea of like, I'd like to go into fashion if I can, but also I've been working on this other career in, like media and, like performance and stuff like that. So anyways, all that to say, I thought I should go the traditional route, ended up in corporate America, and then was like, what am I doing? I'm gonna get to the end of my life and be like, I never pursued anything
I never did what I wanted.
Yeah. So I actually, my original idea was I loved vintage, I loved thrifting, and definitely when I moved to California, my it just exposed me to so much more thrifting. Like I grew up on an island with like one tiny thrift store, and nothing was there really. And then all of a sudden moved to California, and it was like Savers was on my way home every day. And I would stop there and find the most insane vintage. So my original concept was like, I will open a little vintage store, and that'll kind of be my entry in to the world of fashion. And then I could do styling, and then maybe like from there go further. But this was also in like 2007. Okay. And MySpace had just kind of become a thing. and Facebook was like only within colleges. But I did, within MySpace, I realized you could link out to something, and I found like a photo stream group on Flickr called Wardrobe Remix, which was like people showing their outfits.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is like old school, like people with a digital camera taking like one photo of themselves, and it wasn't cute or anything. It was literally like,
it was like
this is what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like nothing about it was cool yet. It was literally like very much like, here's my outfit, not like,
so cool.
let me make this aesthetic and interesting, you know?
Yeah.
So that kind of then linked me into the world of like a blog spot. And I was like, if I'm going to open a vintage store, it'd be cool if I have a website where I can start to tell people about my vintage store. Now, when I say tell people about, I really thought I would like tell a person in real life. I didn't think like people would find my blog. Like, this is so far back. So I did. I started a blog called The Vintage Society because that's originally what I was going to name my store. And I started to upload like, here's how I wear vintage, and then I would upload photos of like, here's vintage I'm finding that's going to be in my store.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this was the birth of blogging. So literally, like, I had people reading my blog from all over the world, and it just kind of threw me into this whole other world.
Wow.
And the idea of the store went away because opportunities started to, you know, kind of come my way. I ended up working with Quicksilver at the time, launched a women's line that was much more fashion forward, and I ended up applying as a they were called, what were we called, ambassadors, but not like, it's not like an influencer, but we were all kind of, it was like me and 5 other girls were like the faces of the brand.
Okay, yeah, that's so cool.
But more like everyone had their own niche. Like one girl was a singer, one was an artist, and then I was the actual only fashion person. And because I was in the like online world, we saw the power of that working with the brand. So I actually became their online fashion editor after like our ambassadorship was done, which was only a year.
That is so cool.
And yeah, and so that kind of just, I mean, that just opened my whole world up. I was going to New York, I was going to France, I was like doing all of these crazy fun projects with them, and really developing what at the time is now like an influencer program, but we didn't know what that was. That was like brand new. But I was like, I post things and it drives traffic. We should look for other girls that do this and we'll drive traffic to our brand. So we started these, influencer campaigns without it being an influencer campaign at the time. But it was just because that was what I was doing. So it made sense to find other people like me.
Yeah. And it was also new. Yeah. That's so crazy.
So it was all new. Fast forward, my blog, became a bigger thing. I actually changed it to B.Jones Style because I realized I'm not opening a store called the Vintage Society anymore. I wanted my name attached. I guess I became like more of a full-time influencer. I launched a YouTube channel like later in the game, like in 2012, I launched a YouTube channel, but that was really because the world of blogging was so static in the sense of like, here's a photo, here's what I'm wearing. And it was also the peak time of like, everything is about affiliate links and driving traffic to product. And I was always still just wearing thrift and vintage.
Yeah, that there was really no link for that.
Right, there's no link for that. And so I was kind of bored with the format of that. And in 2012, I was like, I want to bring people into my world of how I do style. And so I decided to do a YouTube channel. And at the time, I didn't see other YouTubers like bringing people into thrift stores and like showing the process and then showing like really when it comes to styling, not just like to look like you're spending $5, but like how can you take what's happening on the runways and then turn it into reality with what's in the thrift store or with vintage or whatever. So I started that. The end of like one of my videos, maybe a year in, I just kind of signed off like, always play dress up, bye. And then I was like, wait a second, that's everything that I am about. And that's like my tagline, my brand. And it really shifted everything for me because then all of a sudden I realized like the lens that everything should be looked at is with, always play dress up. And that changed kind of everything. And then really just everything has kind of expanded and grown since then. And it's been really fun. And I feel like my style is always, there's something consistent always with it. I mean, I love I always say kind of, I love to just like dress up characters,
Yeah.
not in a theatrical way or like I'm not in reality, but I love to kind of almost pretend I'm a costume designer and think about like, and I remember Patricia Field, who is the creator of Sex and, Carrie Bradshaw style.
Yep.
And I saw an interview with her one time and she said like every day is a stage, like go out on that stage and decide who you're going to be that day.
Yeah.
And that's like exactly how I think with getting dressed. It's like, who do I want to be today? What do I want to play with? And, but definitely like over the last, it's been like 18 years now, I think my knowledge of fashion has grown so much, my exposure to it, just learning to like style in different ways and layer in different ways and get creative and take, inspiration from like different decades and really like mesh that into the modern world. And, but it's always, I'm always growing and learning. I'm never feeling like, okay, I've hit the pinnacle.
I've got everything nailed. Like you're like, no, I think that's also like, I mean, I found you through your YouTube, which I think that's fun. So interesting how that's always like, that was like kind of like the thing like that you did towards the end of it. And so I feel like it's like, it's true. Like for someone who kind of just lived in the suburbs, like you really have like nothing else around you with like the fashion world. And so it's really what you're exposed to like on the internet or like on TV, like anything that influences you. So I think that's also like so cool how like it just like expanded even more. How do you though like go back to that and kind of like get inspired all the time? Because I feel like obviously like trends are changing and like the runway is always kind of like in the news. So like what are the things that you kind of look forward to like get inspired?
I think I'm always on this hunt to be inspired, like to have that fresh spark of creativity. I think even being a creator, I don't ever want to be like stagnant. So I'm always looking to kind of spark something new. And I feel like it comes in a lot of different areas. Sometimes it can be like a current movie or like I was so inspired by Poor Things earlier this year. I didn't even see the movie. I just like loved everything she wore. And then I like dove into like interviews with the costume designer and like what she was inspired by. So I like to like deep dive into like, if I see something that inspires me, then I'll like dig deeper to like, even like a runway collection will inspire me often, but then I like to go and then read the articles. Okay, what was the designer inspired by? What was the art they were inspired by? And like dive further in. So I think, that's like kind of a basic way. I also collect, like I'm looking over here, I have like shelves of just tons of fashion books. So if it's like archive collections, I actually just went to this antique store in Bakersfield, California, and they had acquired the entire library from the old college, I guess, in town.
Oh my gosh.
Every Vogue from like 1970s up until like 2000 and
that's
something.
Gold. Yeah, that's literally
and
gold.
And they were cataloged into these books. And they're so expensive to find on eBay, and it was like 3 magazines are in each one, and they were like selling them for $10. So I bought like every single one they had just out. I mean, literally. She's like, I have so many more if you want to like, and I was like, I'm coming back because I want more of them. But just looking at like old images like that, to me, I like to go with like, yes, of course I'm influenced by what's happening now and trends and things like that. But I really love more, like I said, to like think in characters. So if there is a runway collection that's inspiring me, that yes, there's like trends represented there. I'm not looking at the trend. I'm looking at, okay, like what's that character? Because ultimately there is a character that's like coming off that runway, and like what's that story of that person? And then you can almost like build that out further in your mind. And what are the like elements of that? If it's like, I just went to New York and I like created this whole idea of like the cabaret, like, and kind of the MC from Cabaret, which is like very much like suiting, but then it's also like, there's like a inspiration of like the 20s and 30s and in there. And then, there's also like the boudoir element to it and like lingerie. And then you think about like the textures, there's velvets and satins and silks and fur and feathers. And, so it's like you can kind of pull all of that. So that's often how and then I'll mood board and I'll like deep dive and find all kinds of images that go with that reference. And so I'm not even looking at what's happening now. I'm really like creating a whole story. And then then I go in my closet and then I can kind of like, okay, what are the pieces in here?
Yeah.
And then you build the outfits from there. So to me, it's like birthing something completely new versus like, not completely new, like it didn't exist before, but like not what's happening on Pinterest right now necessarily,
exactly,
you know?
Yeah, I feel like fashion is very much about storytelling. Like, like from the designer's perspective or from like any perspective of like even like photo shoots in Vogue and stuff like that, you know? Like, so I think it's always so interesting to keep learning like further, like what inspired the thing you're inspired by, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And
I love it.
Also, like, going back of what you said about like mood boards, I myself am like a big mood board person. Like, even if it's like for the holidays, I'm like, okay, this is like the kind of style that I want to do, and I do like little mood boards and colors. And I think it's like it keeps you inspired to keep wanting to like try new things that you before were afraid to do. Like, you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't pair this with this, but then you do it, and then you're like, okay, like I'm creating something new, but I'm also inspiring myself to keep trying new styles and stuff.
Yeah,
like
totally.
That. How would you say you stay inspired and like keep up, if you can say, with the trends, but adding your own spin to it?
Like when you go to the thrift stores, go and like how you pick the items, you know, like how do you correlate it back to your initial inspiration, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm just constantly sucking up information and inspiration. So like I mentioned, all those other ways, like looking at old archives, looking at, you know, for me often versus a trend, like, yes, I'll look at a trend that's coming off of the runways, but I look more at just the actual collections. I love to really often I'll pick like a few collections that are really inspiring me. And those will be more of my direction versus like, oh, bold shoulders are a trend this season or whatever it is, you know? So more of the idea of like what happened in a collection. And then, you know, if I'm going in the thrift store or whatever, I have all of that in my brain. And I don't even like, I'm not necessarily trying to find it. It's just like my eye goes to that stuff. But I also just love vintage. So if I find something vintage in a thrift store, like, I don't care if it's on trend or not. To me, those are the pieces that are like timeless and you can translate them into every period, honestly. And I think that's what keeps style interesting. And I mean, to reference Carrie Bradshaw again, so much of what her style, especially in the first few seasons, they were putting her in so much vintage that I think that's what makes her style still really relevant. Because if you look at, I was actually rewatching Gossip Girl, which I love, and I love the style, but it's very much just wearing the time. Which is iconic. But it's so like locked in that period. Whereas like Carrie Bradshaw, yes, you do see an element of 90s in her style for sure. But there's also things that are like, that isn't from the 90s. She's wearing like something from the 70s with her 90s piece or whatever. So I think it like grounds the style and keeps it more timeless versus it being locked in like the very trendy moment, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that's so true. I think it's also like this thing where you have like your staple pieces, and if you can find staple pieces that are vintage, well, like the great pair of denim or like an accessory or something, I think that always elevates like your wardrobe too. What like tips and tricks do you have though for like anyone who's starting their thrifting journey or their vintage journey? You know, like they're barely figuring out their style. Like, is there anything that you would recommend for them or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think first it's about maybe figuring out a little bit of like who you are and your sense of style. And if that is like mood boarding, and I used to do personal styling way back in the day, but I would like actually go to my clients and bring, back in the day when there was a million magazines that were incredible, I would bring like tears out of magazines, like a stack of them. And then I would have the person just quickly run through it, like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Not like, I want to wear everything this person's wearing, but more of like, is my eye drawn to this? Is my eye, or is it not? And often what would happen is like everything that was a yes had a very similar thread through it. If it was like very artistic or modern, or maybe there was minimalism to it, or it was, you know, romantic or whatever it was. So I would help them kind of like narrow down to maybe like a 2-word or 3-word description. Like I had a client who was like, what did we call her? Like pretty chic. And it was like very much like French style, like girly, pretty, but there was like this element of like classic French, you know, chicness to it. So just zoning in a little bit more onto like what you love, not like I want a pair of denim that looks like this, but more of like the feeling of what you love.
Love that. Okay. Yeah.
And then going into the thrift store, having that knowledge, but I will say, like, there's just so many things in the thrift store to me that just everyone should have, no matter what your style is. Like, thrift a great menswear blazer, like thrift vintage belts. Always can find incredible coats and outerwear in the thrift store, like that will just transform your whole look, or a really great skirt, or, just some of those like key pieces. And I just think even somebody who's like maybe the typical online shopper with all new could still go and like find a classic blazer, and then they wear it with their A Goldie jeans and their whatever heels from, Shop Bop or whatever, and their t-shirt from, an Bing or whatever.
Yeah.
But like if you throw on a vintage blazer over that, it's gonna just like elevate that look. So I think just kind of, I've done a ton of videos that are like things that you can always thrift and that really anybody can thrift, and they're not scary. And to me, those are like the items to dip your toe in with. If it's the outerwear, if it's the blazer, if it's a great, classic sweater, crew neck sweater, even athletic wear is an easy go-to kind of thrift item, and then go from there, like exploring your personal style and maybe risk a little bit. It's maybe $10 and it's not that bad, and like just play around with it in your closet and all of that. So
with the topic of the episode today, how would you define the glam rock fashion, and what like pieces would you use to style, like to bring out the glam rock in it? In your outfit?
Well, glam rock to me, it's so much of what I love. It's very theatrical, which I love. And actually, I went through this whole thing a few years ago where I dove into the like 90s retro revival designers like Vivienne Westwood and Christian Lacroix and Jean Paul Gaultier and all of them. And they make me think of that glam rock era, because it's so much of like theater, over the top, feathers, metallics, crazy fun makeup, sparkles, like putting on a show at every moment. And I love there's like romance to a lot of the clothing too, and it's pulling from even like Renaissance era and corseting, and there is no like, it's like everyone's fabulous,
everyone's looking so glam,
so glam, so fabulous, no like shyness there. So honestly, it's like so much of what I love, and even my inspiration from New York, which was like cabaret, but to me it could even be kind of that glam rock of like the velvets, the furs, the boas, the throwing on like a metallic pair of pants, doing like a really great kind of military inspired jacket, but that's like more shrunken, but then throwing it on with like something, like leather, and then a platform shoe, and doing the boa or doing the crazy makeup or, stuff like that. So I think there's like, honestly, this isn't, going into the holiday season, to me, like glam rock should be embraced, because it's like the perfect
shirts.
Like turn it up and like put on a show.
The glitter.
All of that. So.
All right. I just want to, end it a little bit by saying, like, is there, like, first, thank you for joining us and for having this amazing conversation. Is there anything new for you, maybe in, like, the new year that you're working on? Anything you want to, like, tease, or just anywhere that, our listeners can kind of follow you, through?
Yeah. I'm pretty much YouTube every Thursday. I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm pretty consistent on both of those platforms and create differently on both of them too. So it's not always a repeat. I also just launched a Substack that is called Inside the Dress Up Closet, and that's probably like my newest thing. I've actually done a newsletter for a long time, but this is just like a new version of it. And I do have hopes to kind of like launch somewhat of a podcast within Substack.
Yay!
So I have some really fun ideas with that that I'm working on, and then I am kind of not reconfiguring, but I'm with my YouTube. I'm like going to be trying some new things and like bringing in some new elements to that in 2025. Once things settle down, and then I can get myself restarted with things. But always creating, always look at, just, I always want to be inspired. And so just creating inspiration to get people to go in their closet and play dress up. I think I just have so much fun creating content that makes people feel excited to then do it for themselves, not to like feel like they have to have anything like me, but just like go and play. Like that's what I want people to feel inspired to do. So
like you're allowed to go and play. You're allowed to go and have fun with your fashion. I love that.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, Beth. It was amazing, and we loved listening to like all of like the before B.Jones that we know right now on social media. It's so nice. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Damn.
No, she's so cute.
We just interviewed B.Jones, and she literally gave us a sneak peek into something she's working on that she hadn't told anyone. Guys, I was like nervous.